All right, welcome everybody. I think we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Beth Foss and Nick Peterson. We're both hopefully on your screen right now, and I want to welcome you to our second installment on webinars that we are having, thankfully hosted by Allergan and Biogen, who provided us grant funding to hold these. We just want to say thank you for coming. Some of you were here last week. I'm going to let Nick tell you about the next two later in his presentation, as this is a series of 4. So he can share the other 2 that he'll be doing the next 2 Fridays. Just a couple housekeeping issues for those of you that were not here last week. We're going to keep everybody muted because that's just a whole lot easier. And if you have any questions, Nick will be pausing between each demonstration, and please use your chat icon, and I will be relaying the questions to Nick, so thank you for doing that. We might be taking some questions too at the end if time allows. This is recorded, as the last session was, and it will be on our website, so please feel free to view it again, share it with others, or get more information. I would really encourage everyone to print off the PowerPoint presentations. Surely take notes on it. Important things are that we do have Nick's contact information, so you can reach out to him personally if you'd like to. And I think that's all the housekeeping issues. So I wanted to just say thank you again to Nick Peterson. He is really helping out the foundation. He is a part of our team now, and we're excited to have him. He works for a company called Vis-Ability. They were to be presenting at our conference in June, which now will be in June of 2021. So he's just got all sorts of good stuff. So we'll go ahead and let him start. And I'm going to go ahead and mute myself and stop my screen.
Thanks, Beth. All right, so hello everyone, I'm Nick Peterson, like Beth mentioned. A little bit about me again, like last week. So my background is in mental health. I was doing a program called Project Rebuild at the Association for the Blind and Visually Impaired in Rochester, New York. That program was intended to help seniors with the mental health impact of vision loss, but because it was only half my time, they asked if I would learn to become assistive technology instructor as well. And I quickly learned that I loved this field, and that unfortunately there are places, I'm sure across the country, across the world, where information on this topic is hard to come by, hence these webinars. Like Beth mentioned, these days I work for a company called Vis-Ability. We are a vendor for assistive technology for New York State and New Jersey. I cover most of New York. My employer, Mike Parker, covers the 5 boroughs of New York City and New Jersey. I'm happy to say we do free, no obligation in-home demonstrations of a whole lot of wonderful things. If you're interested in anything that I'm showing you guys today or last week for that matter, I would encourage you to either reach out to me to see if I could get you connected with a local rep, or contact the manufacturer directly. Hopefully they would also, if things settle down with the pandemic and all, hopefully they would be willing to do a demonstration for you so you can see if they would work for you. Because I'm a strong believer that it's difficult to know if something could work for you until you try it. So hopefully you'll get that opportunity, or hopefully you'll find this informative. Probably other things to talk about, but we'll be talking for a little while here. My email address is on the first slide of the PowerPoints. If you have questions after the webinar or at any point in the future, I encourage you to reach out to me. I've been doing this for about 4 years now and plan to be doing it for the rest of my life, because I love this field and I love the impact that it can have for someone with vision loss. That being said, last week we talked about low vision devices, typically CCTVs that would take a picture of a document or of something and then magnify it on a screen. The first device we're going to look at today is also a CCTV, but the rest of what I have in store for you guys is not. So we're kind of venturing into devices that would be beneficial for someone with more advanced vision loss or possibly total blindness. Most of the devices, actually all the devices we're going to be looking at today, would be possible for someone with no vision whatsoever. That being said, first thing we're going to look at today, as you'll see if you're looking at your slides, is called the Omni Reader. And I'm going to push my screen back so that you can see this better. So this is from a company called Freedom Scientific, and don't like the glare, but we'll see how this does. You'll notice, I would think, that I can, if you're seeing what I'm doing on screen here, I've got a 10-inch screen, and it is what I would refer to as a lunchbox style CCTV. It's tall. It is battery powered, and it has a handle up top here. Kind of shaped like a tall lunchbox. The screen can be turned off. So if someone was using it with no vision whatsoever, they probably wouldn't get much benefit out of having the screen on. Or we can do that, which would likely make it more accessible for someone with rhoderemia, I would think, from what I've heard. Large tactile buttons on top make it possible for someone with no sight whatsoever to use it. And again, with the screen off, battery life on this one is pretty spectacular, between 10 and 12 hours of battery life. To make it function, we touch the large round button up top here, and it will take a picture and it will read to us. So it's trying to read so a couple things. That first gibberish was it trying to read the image at the top of the page, which obviously we don't want that. But again, we can change the contrast to what would likely be more user-friendly for someone with diminishing vision. I think this would be a nice option for somebody whose vision is tailing away and they're in anticipation of being totally blind at some point in the not too distant future. This would be a great device because it does provide that portability, it does provide that ease of use. It would be something they could use while they still have some usable vision, but when regrettably the day comes when they have no usable vision anymore, this would be something they could still use. So I paused it for a moment. I turned the volume up.
Text to you
and
by
it's really
pressing
slow.
a single button. You can follow the magnified text in high contrast.
Adjust the speech rate with this large round knob on the side here. You can make it. We can go from
high contrast
really
colors
slow
on the
to
built-in screen,
rather comfortable
or simply
speech
listen
rate.
as the OmniReader reads text out loud. You can also use the
Faster,
screen to instantly magnify text
to ludicrous speed,
more clearly, thanks to its lightweight design.
whatever is best for you, whatever you're trying to do. And again, if you're looking at something and you know what you're trying to, the information you're trying to get from a document is further down the page, you can move down the page.
Want, home, office, even, the product, features.
I'm going word by word here.
Read, magnify.
And for those of you who have a good amount of usable vision, this is going to read this document almost 100% accurately. It's very accurate, which is nice. Sometimes things are pretty important, and those sort of details are going to be difficult to stomach losing. Another interesting thing about this one here is that if you were to connect a Braille display, you would be able to have Braille output. And I know that we don't have a whole lot of Braille users in the membership of CRF, but I would imagine it might be because you think Braille is exclusively dots on paper. Braille has come a long way since then. This device here, which is a Braille display, allows someone to connect this little keyboard and have this device, the OmniReader, spit out Braille as it's talking. So along the bottom here, and you might be able to see these little dots, and I'll position this as best I can. Those little dots there enable someone who's deaf and potentially blind as well, or deaf and blind, to be able to manage print material. So bills, letters, whatever. As it's reading, it is displaying the words in Braille here. And when I start the reading again, you'll see that these little cells are going to change to display what is being read and what is on screen. So this is a 14 cell Braille display. They come in all different sizes and all different capabilities. But I think it's pretty amazing that this sort of technology exists at this point.
Text, large, easy to use controls with profiles for low vision and blind users. Portable, and lightweight, ideal to take with you. Connect a headset to listen to
They're small, so it's going to be a little difficult to see, but it is possible for someone with multiple disabilities, such as deaf blindness, to be able to manage print material with this sort of device. It's pretty amazing.
In 17 different languages.
And this up here, these blue keys, if you're seeing what I'm indicating here, these are Perkins-style Braille keyboard to add print, to connect this device to maybe a computer or other tablet-based systems to be able to type in Braille as well. And then the output comes out down here. Any questions? Price, I know it's going to be a question before long if it isn't already. So the OmniReader sells for around $2,500. The Braille display, which is a separate unit, it sells for around $1,300, $1,400. No, unfortunately not. So I work in New York State. I can't speak to everywhere, but in New York State, insurance companies, Medicaid, Medicare, which is federal, so the answer would be no there as well, do not cover low vision or blindness products. It's possible that if someone happened to be a veteran in the United States military, that would be a possible outlet to get a device like this. New York State also has an equipment loan fund that makes it possible for people who are disabled, not necessarily legally blind, not necessarily just visually impaired either, just disabled, to get some of these devices or other devices to help with the disability. There's also the possibility, if you're working and something like this is necessary for your job, that the New York State Commission for the Blind would purchase it for you. But that's just New York State only. I don't know if your local state has a program like that, but it might be worth something looking into.
I don't have any questions here from anybody. So if anybody has any quick that they would like to, regarding the OmniReader, please feel free to send it in via the chat icon at the bottom, and I will share them. How many pounds did that weigh? How big was it? Is it cumbersome?
No, it's a 10-inch screen and it weighs 3 1/3 pounds. So it's plenty portable. The cord that was poking out of the side of it was for connecting the Braille display. Without that connected, this is the extent of it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a handle on top, like I mentioned.
Nice. Doesn't look like there's any questions, so I think we're good to move to the next one, Nick. Thank you.
Sure. And now we get to listen to the jingle that the next one's going to play for us. So up next, we have another device from Freedom Scientific. This is called the EyePal Solo. So I'm going to tilt the screen so you can see what's going on here while it finishes up the song for us. Very catchy. So I'm going to turn it down for a moment so it's not interfering with what I'm saying. So along the front here, and how does that look, Beth?
That looks good.
Okay. Over here on the far side, the green button, which is a square, is the power button.
Please place your document.
Next over, we have two, I would say, rounded buttons with arrows on them, one facing up, one facing down. That's for the speech rate. The one that's above the other is, of course, faster. The one at the bottom is slower. We've got a knob in the middle for the volume. and turning it to the right will increase the volume. Next button is, again, kind of shaped like a shovel and has the pause icon actually physically on the button so you can feel it. And the next button, which is also shaped like a shovel, has a triangle facing to the left on it. And again, that's tactile to it as well. The unit itself weighs about 7 pounds, shaped kind of like a page, and has a camera. Good news, we get to listen to the song again. Has a camera coming off of a stem going to the top. And that's where the light comes from. That's where the actual camera is at the top of the stalk coming off of the unit itself. And once it's done with its jingle, I will have it read for us. This one does not come as a battery-powered unit. It is still fairly portable, though, with the 7-pound weight to it. Not super burdensome, I wouldn't think. This one has the possibility of scanning up to 20 pages per minute and reading them to you. And you can actually save what's scanned as a MP3 or as a TXT file. So now it's ready to read to us, and I'll show you how that goes. This one does not come with a screen, and it makes it possible for literally someone with no vision whatsoever to just simply put a page on there and have it read it to us.
The new Q Braille XL, a unique blend of a Perkins keyboard and QWERTY
And it can work
keys.
in
Place your
either
document.
direction. You could potentially put it on so that the page is kind of facing you rather than either side. But I think it actually does better if you put it to the side. But again, it doesn't matter which direction you place the page. It just reads it. If you put the page upside down,
Please place your document.
there's no print there.
Text not found.
There's no text there.
Please place your document.
But just very easy to use. It's not a computer. You don't need to connect it to a computer. It just reads. It's just simple to use. For a senior who's struggling with technology, if the most complicated thing they've ever used was a remote control, it might be a really easy choice that's not going to lead to a lot of frustration. The worst thing that can happen with somebody with a low vision device or a blindness device would be to have it
The new Q Braille XL, a unique blend of a Perkins keyboard
purchased
and
and then not
QWERTY function
used.
keys.
It would be
Q
really
Braille XL
tragedy.
represents an entirely new type of Braille display. Please place your document.
I think I saw a question about books. Not handy. Would need to save the documents, and I don't have it connected to a thumb drive, so it's not really something I can do right this minute to have it read multiple pages to us. But it's not particularly burdensome to do that. Do we have any other questions on this one?
We have a quiet audience. No. How about the cost?
Oh, thank you. This one sells for under $2,000, right around $1,900. So it's less than the previous one. Doesn't have a screen, just easier to use, I would think. Maybe a little less less threatening for somebody who's not particularly savvy when it comes to technology.
Mm-hmm. For your clients, Nick, who have real low vision or no vision left, what do you see them using the most?
For seniors, I've done a lot of this one because the simplicity is alluring for them. It really just depends on how much vision somebody has. If they have enough vision to be able to maximize, to be able to see the print themselves, or maybe even see to write checks, that sort of thing, that would be very difficult / impossible on this device here. But if they're just looking for something that will read to them, isn't going to give them a whole lot of headaches, this is done well for a lot of people. I saw a question about how does the machine know where to start reading. It just starts reading from the top. That red button I showed you guys a few minutes ago actually goes back to the previous sentence. If you missed something and wanted to hear it again, that would be the far left button. It does actually come with a remote control that isn't really necessary, but if you wanted to be able to move around the document a little more, or even change the document into more of a, or rather instruct the unit to read it as more of a table for like bills and that sort of thing, the remote control is handy for that reason. But I didn't get that out today because I didn't think it was going to be necessary. But it is possible to do those sorts of things with this.
We don't have any other questions.
Okay.
You're covering it well.
I guess so. But we have a lot of questions in a few minutes here, which is okay. So next up, we are going to look at a completely different type of device. This is a media player. Yes, that last one does have a headphone jack. So did the first one as well. So this here is a media player. It's smaller. Where did I put my cell phone?
Welcome to Victor Reader.
It's smaller than my iPhone, which is here. So if you're seeing what I have on the screen here, I have a iPhone 8 in my left hand, and in my right hand is the Victor Reader Stream. Like I said, it's smaller than a cell phone, has physical buttons on the front of it so that somebody with literally no sight whatsoever would be able to manage the device. And I'm seeing that my internet signal is not on anymore, so I'm going to need to turn that on to be able to make this work. Excuse me a moment. There's a flashing orange button there showing me that it's not connected. That now it is finally connected to the internet. So what this is again is a media player. It doesn't have a screen. It doesn't connect to anything else. It is an all-inclusive device. And what this will do
Podcast download completed.
is play media for you. Whether it be audiobooks like Bookshare and Audible rather, Daisy, MP3s, MP4s, EPUBs, a whole litany of different digital material is available to somebody with no sight whatsoever with this machine. There's a headphone jack, and you just get to sit there and enjoy
Go to station.
whatever you'd like to listen to.
1, 2. Go to station. 7, 0. Volume.
And
14.
I'm going to,
Bookshelf. Notes. 0. Note.
I was
Bookshelf.
listening to
Internet
an
radio. 1. Playlist. 1. Bookshelf.
podcast earlier
Notes.
about
Bookshelf. References. 0. Podcasts. 1. Podcast feed. 1.
60-second science. Scientific American.
now if I play this, there's going to be an ad at the start, but then it goes on to give 60 seconds worth of really kind of interesting material.
This is Scientific American's 60-second science. I'm Steve Worski.
This
We have more cases than anybody in the world.
This sells for $400 roughly, and there's an option, this is called the Victor Reader Stream. There's an option called the Victor Reader Trek that also has GPS components available in it too, that enables turn-by-turn navigation, which is pretty cool, in addition to all the media streaming available with it. This one does have a replaceable battery back here, so potentially it could work for you for 10, 20 years, who knows. It's not beholden to the battery life in any way.
You know, Nick, can I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
If someone is well versed in their smartphone, would this option really be useful to them?
I think if they're they're able to use a smartphone in every sense that, or in every capability that a smartphone is able to do. An iPhone is going to have more capabilities than this here, there's no doubt. But this is simpler to use, certainly. And I would say that if somebody isn't particularly interested in learning to use an iPhone with VoiceOver and all that goes into that, this might be a really good option. Though I do know a few people who use this device even with a smartphone as well. So it's just, to some extent, it's a matter of personal preference.
And what do they use it for?
For listening to books, for listening to radio stations, podcasts, all that.
Gotcha.
It's possible here.
Let's see. There doesn't seem to be anything, any questions yet.
So, next, to select a book, you need to connect it to something like Bookshare, to Daisy, to Audible. I haven't had that set up in that fashion. But that's something that you would do if you actually had one, certainly. All right, so next up, we're going to talk about the Orcam MyEye. So,
Can I jump in real quick?
Sure.
Sorry, I thought maybe you saw that. There's a final question from Jason. How do you add accounts or content to that little device?
There's instructions that come with it. It's not voice activated. There's more steps involved to connecting it to Bookshare or Audible or whatever than I can go into at this point. It would take 10 minutes. But there's a user manual that can be downloaded online that comes with instructions on how to do that sort of thing. Sorry, I hope that's helpful enough.
I bet it is. And hopefully, each state, as you represent New York, right? Each state perhaps has representatives that can help walk people through this process if they're
I would think so. I mean, and
like
HumanWare, the last device is from a company called HumanWare, like I said. They've got really good training materials available online. And they do webinars and that sort of thing where you can get a lot of that information and assistance regarding. And that's, of course, because it's online, like this will be before long, it's available anywhere. So if you have that sort of specific type question, that would be a great place to look. So like I was saying, next up, we're going to talk about the Orcam MyEye and OmniReader. Now, regrettably, I don't have this device to show you guys, but I used to sell this device and know it fairly well. It's something that I think would be potentially very helpful for somebody with advanced vision loss or potentially total blindness, because it does a lot of the things that someone who has that visual situation would be interested in. So for reference sake, I have this laser pointer that is roughly the size of Orcam, though this is a little fatter at the bottom than the Orcam MyEye would be. But for those who are not seeing what I'm holding in my hand, you can think of it more or less like the size and shape of a chapstick tube or lipstick tube, I would imagine. And what that does is you get a series of brackets with the Orcam if you were to purchase it or try it out, I suppose. And the brackets actually basically get zip tied to your glasses, or any glasses for that matter. You get multiple sets of the brackets, so you can have a bracket on your prescription glasses or on your sunglasses, a third set of glasses, whatever. And then the Orcam actually connects to the bracket with a very strong magnet that holds it right next to your glasses, so that more or less wherever you look, the Orcam is looking. You can turn it on and off. It's not always going to be on. Battery life is roughly 1.5 hours to 2 hours. And it weighs less than an ounce. So like I said, it's very small, very discreet. Things to realize with Orcam is it does not enhance your vision in any way. But what it does is it reads to you. The most basic function, the Orcam MyReader, is it will read, and it does it with automatic page detection. So that means that if you look at a page for long enough, and you can set the amount of time between announcements at whatever you like, 5 seconds, 30 seconds, a minute, whatever. But if you look at a page for 5 seconds, it will start reading it to you. Or you can tap the unit, or you can point at the page, or the sign on the wall, or I tested out at one point a couple years ago when I was selling the device at a McDonald's. I was 2 or 3 people back in line, and just by looking at the, actually I think I tapped the unit to activate it, but it started reading the menu above the cashiers to me from 10 to 20 feet away. It's really quite amazing. And again, I don't sell Orcam, so I'm not trying to sell you on it. I just think it's something that people should be aware of. Like I said, automated page detection, it does work in roughly 20 languages. It's offline operation, so you don't need to find a Wi-Fi signal. You don't need to generate a Wi-Fi signal on your own. The base unit, which again is called the Orcam MyEye, has a year warranty to it. And I've regrettably, when I was had it in my hands more often, I dropped it more than once and it didn't break. Not that I would recommend that by any stretch of the imagination, but because it weighs so little, unless you dropped it and physically stepped on it, it likely would be fine. I wouldn't recommend trying that out by any stretch of the imagination. Any questions about what I just said? Because I'd like to move on to the MyReader as well, which is a more sophisticated version of the same device.
When we were practicing, Nick, the other day, you gave a really great illustration, and I apologize for not remembering which device it was, between these two, about going in an airport, because we do have a lot of members that travel and finding gates and signs and so forth. You said that it really could be helpful.
Sure. So, like I said, you can set the amount of time between announcements. So if you're in a foreign place and you want it to more or less be talking nonstop, and you set the delay at 5 seconds, every 5 seconds that you're looking at something, it's going to read it to you, whether it be men's room, concourse B, what do you call it? Car rentals, whatever. It will just, every 5 seconds, it's reading based on where you're looking. Or if you want to be a little more purposeful with the announcements, you can set it at like 30 seconds by adjusting the announcement rate, and every 30 seconds it will announce to you those things. It's really quite impressive in how quick or how adaptable it can be for an individual's needs. And like I said, because it's not connected to the internet, it works wherever you are, as long as it has a charge. It just works. It's not beholden to, or at least that function is not beholden to being in a place that has Wi-Fi. But you could certainly use it at a grocery store to be able to read the new attendee. This is the Orcam MyEye I'm talking about, or MyReader rather. The MyReader, and there's a slide on it in the PowerPoint that hopefully you have access to. It is rechargeable. It plugs into a wall, and like I said, the battery life is 1.5 hours to 2 hours. The Orcam MyReader reads. That's the easy thing about it. The Orcam MyEye, which I'm going to be talking about next, is the same hardware, but it has more sophisticated functionality. So again, MyReader, just simply reading, and that sells for roughly $3,500. I've seen it on sale online before, or I think at points they've offered a savings if you didn't want training on it. It's not the easiest device to learn how to use. I think training is potentially worth whatever they're charging for it. But if $3,500 isn't palatable, maybe a couple $100 off might make it a little more manageable. The Orcam MyEye, rather, like I said, is the one that's more sophisticated. And these are the second generation that I'm referring to. there was a previous generation, but right now they don't sell that anymore. So this is the second generation. So Orcam MyEye 2, Orcam MyReader 2. Orcam MyEye, in addition to reading, also has facial recognition. So you can literally teach the device. Sorry, I didn't check how many people. I think it's 100 people. You can teach the device to recognize up to 100 people. And then whenever you're within 6 to 10 feet of that person, it will announce in your voice, Nick Peterson, Beth Foss. And then you can set the amount of delay to that as well. So if Beth and I were having coffee, I don't think I would want it telling me every 30 seconds or every 5 seconds, Beth Foss, Beth Foss, Beth Foss. But if it was set to more like 2 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever, that would be better in that case. But as you're maybe going about your day at your place of employment, a lot of people have told me that that's a real struggle, is that they're at their grocery store, or they're at their job, and they're walking by people, and they don't know who the person is. So unless the person is doing a good job of introducing themselves and using their name, they may miss out on potentially saying hello. This device, which again is small and fits on your glasses, could potentially announce to you Nick Peterson. And because it's your voice, you could call me whatever you wanted and save it as the tech guy or the New Yorker or whatever. This is a really wonderful feature of the Orcam MyEye. It also can identify products. So again, you could teach it products, and you do that by simply taking multiple pictures of the product or of the person's face, and then it will ask you to identify the product or the face. And then, like if I'm prone to losing my phone or my coffee mug or my car keys or my house keys, whatever, you can teach the device to automatically announce to you Nick's coffee mug when it sees that. Or it reads barcodes, like I said, which is pretty amazing. And it can do color identification too, which I think is pretty nice as well for people who struggle with that sort of thing. The Orcam MyEye sells for $4,500. So it's a more expensive device, but it's for somebody who's looking for something that they can use hands-free, that they can just use and not have to worry about swiping or tapping or double tapping with a smartphone, that sort of thing. It might be a really wonderful option to explore. Yes, 90 minutes to 2 hours runtime. I got a question here. There is they recently came out with a battery pack with it that you can plug the Orcam MyEye 2 or Orcam MyReader 2 and be able to keep using. So the battery pack is roughly probably about the size of a Roku remote, maybe a little smaller than that. And that will keep it running for somebody who's trying to use it all day. That's an additional cost, I think it was anyway. It's been a while since I've opened a new box of Orcam. And again, I'm just mentioning this because I think it's a really nice device that somebody with advanced vision loss or total blindness should probably consider if it's at all in the cards, because it has a lot of wonderful capabilities. Any other hardware to carry? No, there's no handheld. There's a question here. Any other hardware to carry? There's no handheld component to it. It's simply connects to the bracket to glasses, and the magnet holds it on the glasses. This isn't Orcam. If you just came in, this isn't a device. This is a laser pointer, but it's roughly the size of this. Roughly the size of a chapstick or a lipstick tube.
This is not a question that anyone asked Nick, but these costs are so prohibitive for a lot of people, and it's a crying shame that Medicare or insurance doesn't pay for these. Do you have any suggestions or ideas where people can go to ask for additional funding, or I think the
I've had
CRF
people-
actually could do that. You know, our organization, it would be great. We have Eric Hartman as our director of advocacy. This would certainly be something that we could work and focus on.
Sure. I've had people set up like GoFundMe accounts and be successful in that regard. I've had, there was one gentleman who lived in kind of a rural part of New York State, and they did a spaghetti dinner for him and were able to raise a couple $1,000. There were donations from the local businesses and churches too, but it was on the news. It was really quite impressive. It's unfortunate that they cost as much as they do. These devices are potentially life-changing, and it's unfortunate that things like insurance companies and Medicaid, Medicare don't cover them. It's the nature of things, unfortunately. Maybe someday. Right, your Congressman?
Exactly. I don't see any other questions from the queue.
Okay. Well, last device I wanted to show you guys, and this is another Braille device. I know, like I said earlier, that Braille isn't really all that persistent or pervasive in members of Proteremia, but I think it's good to know that there are such things out there. So this here is a computer, believe it or not. This is a HIMS BrailleSense U2 Mini. Again, smaller size than some, hence the name Mini. This is an 18-cell unit. So each one of these little areas, and I can actually feel the Braille here. Each one of these little areas is a cell, and it's displaying here in Braille what it's saying. And again, we've got the Perkins style keyboard up here. The really nice thing here, because it's a computer, has all the capabilities of a computer. And you may, if you can see what's happening on the screen here, you may be able to see the Braille cells moving as I'm moving through the menu. So somebody who has no sight whatsoever and possibly no hearing could use this device to send and receive emails and do everything else that a computer savvy individual could do. This has a Windows-like interface, so it's very sophisticated as far as what it's capable of.
Library services.
There is a larger version of this, and there's this is just a small sampling of the Braille devices out there. But there's dozens of Braille displays, like the one earlier, that's basically a Braille keyboard, and also dozens of Braille note takers, which again are like Braille computers. The larger size version of this one has 32 cells. They do make, a different company makes an 80-cell Braille display that's probably larger than a baseball bat, or longer than a baseball bat. But it just depends on what somebody needs or what they're comfortable with.
Social networking, web tools, organizer, media.
But my first exposure with a Braille device, days after I started working as assistive technology instructor, I was attending a conference for assistive tech instructors from across New York State, and a gentleman got up and was running his fingers along a device that was hanging around his neck. And I couldn't figure out for the first probably 5 minutes of him talking what he was doing. And then it dawned on me that that was Braille, and he was reading his speech as he was going through it. Really just very amazing stuff. But there's so much out there now that I don't think most people are aware of.
I don't see any questions. And how much is that?
The smaller version is currently on sale for around $3,000. The larger one sells for around $4,600, which again, they're computers, so there's an added expense with function versus the smaller one that I showed you guys at the beginning with the blue keys that sells for around $1,300, $1,400. It's just a keyboard. There's, depending on what somebody needs, there's versions of those that have like a physical screen on them, and people can literally braille on the screen. It's just incredible. I'm going to turn this off.
Well, now's the time, folks. If anybody has any additional questions on any of the devices, now's the time to ask, or type them in rather, and I'll forward them as you're thinking about it or putting your fingers to work. Just another thing, Nick, why don't you go ahead and share what the other two sessions are going to be about?
So next week we're going to do applications for smartphones. So for Android, for iOS, for Apple smartphones, we're going to go over things like VoiceOver and TalkBack and that sort of thing. I know I mentioned Seeing AI. Thank you. I know I mentioned Seeing AI at the tail end of last PowerPoint, and it sounds like some people have already tried that and really liked it, so I'm glad to hear that. So we're going to be talking more about that next week as well. And then the following week, we're going to be talking about software. So JAWS, Zoom Text, Windows Magnifier, all sorts of things that are usable on a computer that make it possible for someone with little or no vision to be able to use a computer. It's really quite amazing what computers are capable of and what people with little or no sight can do with the right software in front of them. So we'll be talking about that in the coming weeks. I think I saw some other questions there.
You know, it's an individual question for somebody, but just trying to figure out in general. And I think Laura, your question, that would be great to email or call Nick about. I think specifically regarding your son. But do you have any? That's a good question in general, Nick. Do you have parameters as to when to use different technology?
Orcam says 6 to 100. Age 6 years old to 100 is a good age for Orcam. I know a lot of TVIs, teachers of the visually impaired, who are teaching their students how to use Braille displays, Braille note takers at a young age when they still have some usable vision, especially if they anticipate that the vision loss is going to be progressive, like many people watching this may be in that sort of situation. It really just depends on the situation and whether or not there is instruction available for that individual. And of course, like anything, it depends on what someone's vision is like. You're welcome, Laura.
Sure.
And my email address is on the first slide of the PowerPoint. Vis-Ability, VISABILITY .nick@gmail. And that goes straight to me. If I get questions, I'll get back to them as soon as I can.
Excellent. And there, I think, do you have another one? I don't see one. I think that's it.
Do we have an email for Orcam with what visual criteria? Yeah, so Orcam says that it will work for anybody, and certainly it would. People with early stages of vision loss, it will help for them. Somebody who has dyslexia, severe dyslexia and can't read, it certainly could work for them too. It's just a matter of, is it the best option for somebody at that point? And that's, that's a personal choice and to some extent, and there's obviously external factors related to that too. But if you go on Orcam's website, you'll undoubtedly find a whole lot of information about what they can do, and likely email and that sort of information as well.
For those of you that joined late, again, we are recording this session. It will be on our website. You will be getting an email probably beginning of next week that will have a copy of, I think a copy of the recording, or at least a link that will take you there, and as well as a survey. So we absolutely appreciate any feedback that you have. I don't see any other additional questions. So hopefully everybody can join us next week. And definitely one more time, I wanted to just tell everybody again, thank you so much for coming. We want to thank our sponsors, which would be Biogen and Allergan. And again, thank you so much for coming, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
Welcome. Have a good one. Bye, Beth. Talk to you soon.
Thanks again.
Welcome.